Are there any questions, John?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Ashley, you sent those out, is that right? I just wanted to say how nice it is to have them so early after the meeting. It's really appreciated. They look great, but to cover them shortly after we have the meeting is fantastic. So thank you.
Agreed.
They are appreciated. Now, I'd like to ask Rosemary just to say, has a word to say about something that was in the Elmer
Yes,
paper.
Nancy was in the Elmer paper and I distributed it to all the land and I hope everybody read it.
He was at the protest in Elmer.
Yeah, that's right. I'm one of the agitators and didn't know, so.
Front and center.
Probably gonna frame it because it probably will not happen very often. They will use my name in a glowing term, so,
Get the copy I sent?
thank you.
It's certainly nice to see because Elmer paper reports more of the local stuff for the county than any other.
Yeah.
You know, the paper in the West End now, you might as well not even get it. Sorry, dude, for saying that.
I don't disagree with you.
But no, thank you, Nancy. It was
Thank you.
well received. And the next thing is signs posted.
Didn't have a motion on the minutes.
We need to move over in second.
Mover and second for the
Move.
moved by Jack, seconded by John Andrews. All in favor? Carried. Now, I was gonna ask you about this. We used to have the minutes go around and were signed, right? Or just when the motions were passed?
Just on the applications, you used to send it around and
Yeah.
everybody signed it, yeah.
But do you agree? I think it's better to have Ashleen calling them and then they're signed by her, and I've got to get around to signing the minutes now because of the meetings we had in Zoom. They haven't been available, but I will be signing them. But do you all agree with keeping up that way now that we're back? It's the easier way, I think, to do it.
Yes.
Rather than have to move when the motions used to be, we had to have the paper go all the way around
Yes.
and Chairman had to wait sometimes. So we'll just leave it that way, the way it's being done.
Yep.
Actually, none of the ones when I was chair were signed either, so
Yeah,
they have,
fine. Well, during that time, we had a lot of,
yeah. it was-
we weren't here anyways, right? So that would have been next to impossible, so.
And then if you're okay with calling the vote yourself like that with the all in favor, if everyone's okay with that instead of me calling it individually.
I like that better.
Okay,
If we're all here now.
Yeah.
And it's quicker, yeah.
Yeah.
so all in favor? It's carried.
He works well.
Yes.
Any inquiries from Land Division Committee members on any items?
Verification.
We're going to be discussing one, I'll just say at the end, about training videos and the revised application form review. We just talked about it at the end.
Mr. Chairman, I just got a quick one on the signs. I had one parcel that was right on, bounded by two roads and it only had two signs. So we put one on each kitty corner, but not one on, so you could see it from the main road on Elm Street. So when they have something like that, if they need an extra sign or two, because I really had to look for it and they didn't have one on the one corner, but I had to drive down the concession road to see it on the other corner. So just when it's bounded by two roads, or perhaps in some cases three roads, they might need more than two signs. Don't agree with me?
Yeah,
Yeah, I can see.
I could see it,
I
yeah.
can see it because you're on Elm and that's the Crane one.
Yeah, it's just south of the airport, running
Yeah,
north-south from the
so, yeah,
airport.
It's a corner lot, yeah.
Yeah, it's a corner lot, so
But they're,
they had property on two sides on two roads.
Is that the Crane or the Penn Hill one? The Penn Hill one, maybe you're talking about.
That's what I was wondering. if it's-
Yeah,
That was the Cranes, I think.
Crane, Penn.
Maybe it was Penn Hill, yeah, you're right.
Penn Hill,
Penn Hill is on the corner road.
yeah.
And Crane is down.
This, yeah, because you couldn't tell, because if you just drove Elm Street, you'd see the one yellow sign. And then, you wouldn't tell, you couldn't tell, was it the property to the east or the property to the west? Anyway, it's just one of those things to look out for in the future. Not a big deal either way.
I think if it had been a more contentious application, we probably would have been more on the ball for providing more
Yeah.
signs.
Yeah.
So luckily, I think we received.
Like, I guess if the address of it is Elm Street, probably should have put them both on Elm.
Should have been both up and down, yeah.
I mean, I think the guy did the right thing.
Yeah.
He put one on the north-south concession road. He did the right thing, but it just would have been better if there'd been one.
Yeah, one on the corner and then you would have had.
Yeah.
Jack?
Just a question on comments in the minutes, comments by committee. I had highlighted, the last one was, can a real estate agent be the agent on an application for consent? Seems like a conflict of interest. And staff was gonna ask John Hogan, so we'll be hearing that from that today.
Yeah, we can talk about it.
Okay. That was an open-ended question that we should probably deal with.
I think we should because it's coming, it's,
Well, I think one application today probably involves the same situation.
Yep.
It was in the last minute, so I think we should deal with it.
yes, I think so. I agree with you there. We should deal with that and we'll deal with it after, we've heard the applications.
Sure.
Is that okay?
Yep.
Is there any other just comments about anything?
One application a day, they're going to fight
Oh, yes,
committees.
yes.
Yeah. Option to defer, but just heads up when it comes.
Yeah, we'll have an extra person speaking with, I'm sure, with the agent.
They're gonna fight the committee's option to defer?
We recommended deferral and they're gonna fight that.
Okay.
And just throw a comment out there. I heard another comment about that one we did on Stalker Road and it's coming back. It's gonna have to come back because my concern is at the end of the year, if the barns aren't tore down, the property cleaned up, that can't be gone through and get stamped, can it, the deed?
I don't recall, was there a condition with respect to demolition of the barns? Yeah?
Yes, the barns had to be taken down and cleaned up.
The
They
condition,
have 1 year to fulfill those, right? So,
You see,
It's
the
a disaster.
situation there was the applicant that applied when we got the application, property had already been sold before we heard it. And now I've heard rumblings that, well,
they're selling it.
either side thinks they have to honor.
Oh, really? Interesting. Well, now that we have further clarification on things, they better be the owners if that's the case, right? Whoever's making the application and have other farm properties,
I
so.
think really it does, and I've had some coming back. The one that was a farmer, he is now retired to the city of London, and he's not farming, so we're gonna have to be, and I think all the municipalities are starting to see that they've gotta be on board and know what's going on. This fellow owns a lot of land, but he's now living in the city of London and doesn't farm, sold all his equipment, sold everything. The next thing he'd be doing is trying to sell his house, but
question if I could, on that topic. So if most services have conditions that have to be met. So before it's finally stamped by the county, how does that work as far as the applicant just says, yep, all these conditions are met?
No, they had, sorry. We rely on the local municipality to send us a letter that says all of their conditions have been met, because they usually have the lion's share of those. So we just ask for them to submit something to us that says that they're satisfied with that their conditions have been met. So we're assuming that all of their conditions have been met. So normally what happens is the applicant will go to the municipality first, try to clear all of those conditions. And then they have to clear potentially the county conditions too, which could be road permit or road dedication or whatever needs to happen. That needs to happen.
Yeah,
And then they have to submit the survey, so we know that it's the same as the decision. And then they submit the fees and the final documents. So that's how it has to be done. So it would have to be signed off by someone, basically.
so in case buildings must be demolished. It's up to the local municipality to make sure that that condition.
Correct, yeah, exactly. We'd be relying on the lower tier to tell us that, yes, we're satisfied those have been demolished. So hopefully an inspection or something would have happened.
Nothing will get signed or stamped until that.
Yeah, until that happens, yeah.
Good.
So they can't meet a condition then, what would end up happening is the application would lapse and then you'd have to reapply, so.
Got a few minutes yet. Is there any other short inquiries, small inquiries that any of the members have?
Well, if we've got a minute, I got a question on, again, one of my Elm Road where when they inspected the septic system, it said that the weeping bed was 4-inch perforated clay tiles. And I'm going, that's not good. But is that something that we should be looking at? I know it's caveat emptor but they've got to drill a new well. And in my mind, I can't imagine how old a 4-inch clay tile, perforated clay tile is, first of all, and how it can still be working after all these years. So is that, and I certainly understand, well, if you want to buy it and not have the septic system inspected, I understand that as well. But at some point, I'm thinking, good Lord, isn't that going a little bit too far?
But I know now in Southwold, for instance, and I know down Downtown, the building inspector makes sure that he tries to be there when the person comes to do the inspection for the well and the septic system, because it's their responsibility if there's something wrong with it. It's the same way with water issues. There was a couple of water issues in Dunwich, and there were houses that were bought last year, but they went back and looked at them and they were fine then. But it's now, because of all the rain, that's starting to filter in to some of these wells where they are, the top's not high enough out of the ground. So that's where it goes back to the local municipality, the building inspector, that has to be there with them.
You see, I agree with you that, but a lot of things we say, we've inspected septic tank seems to be working fine, therefore we're done. Whereas in our application, we talk about the septic system. The system includes inspection of the tank and the weeping bed. And to do the weeping bed, you got to do it properly. You've got to maybe dig out a section of it or do a cross section, something like that. So even on our own application, we ask for the system to be inspected, but so many of our inspections say the tank is working fine. Therefore, I say it's fine, but he didn't inspect the system. And on top of that, when we look at, and every time I read our application, I see something different, but in our application, we say the well's got to be up to provincial standards, but the septic system just has to be inspected. And I think septic systems should be up to provincial standards as well, in my opinion. You know, how can we ask for provincial standards on drinking water, but not provincial standards on a septic system, which if it's not working properly, will infect the well? So not something that I think we can resolve here today, but I don't know, you guys are more in the rural area than I am. Like, is 4-inch perforated clay tiles still a thing out there in rural?
They gotta be at least 40 years old.
Yeah.
Because when I was first out of high school, I helped the guy in some septic systems.
It's better than.
And right around 1980 is when they started switching to plastic.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of those old systems still working.
So,
Some of these clay tiles, they're put in, right, clay tile will sit there 100 years and they'll not be broke.
well, that's the thing, but you don't know until you inspect it, right?
And I don't know what the rules for an inspector, whether they have to dig up part of the tile or if they look in the tank and the water level in the tank is drained off, then that pretty well tells you that your weeping bed is working. Because if it wasn't working, your water level in your tank would be above that outlet mark
That's
or
right.
outlet tile.
They take the top, I've seen them, they take
Oh,
the
yeah,
top
yeah, yeah.
of the tank and
Yeah.
look at it, and they usually come back the second day. But as I've been told by other municipalities, by other ones, that it's part of their inspection and they're the ones responsible. They're the ones that the mortgage company asks about it. They don't come to us, they come to them.
And if the ground gets saturated, the best septic system can have trouble
Yes,
working,
they
right?
can. And this year's a good example in some areas. Okay, it's now a little after 9:20, and we will start with the first one, which is E 51-21, John and David Lowen. It's a deferred application. There's two of them. E 51-21, take notice that an application was made by John and David Lowen, 51477 Glen Line, Aylmer, Ontario, for consent pursuant to section 53 of the Planning Act 1990 as amended to sever lands municipally known as 51432 Woolleyville Line, Township of Malahide. The applicants propose to sever a parcel with a frontage of 43.89 meters, 144.0 feet along Glencolan Line by a depth of 134.112 meters, 440.0 feet, and an area of 0.584 hectares, 1.44 acres, containing one residence surplus to the needs of the purchasing farmer. The owners are retaining 37.97 hectares, 93.82 acres, proposed to remain in agricultural use. Do we have any applicants or agents and interested parties who wish to speak to this application? Please.
Yes, good morning, Dave Rowe, agent, I'm here, answer any questions.
Okay, I will now turn it over to Ashleen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I should also note that I spoke with the agent David Rowe on this one. He can prove that this dwelling is also surplus to the current owners as well as the purchasing farmers. Just wasn't aware that will likely come up in
Yes.
questions from you guys. So the Township of Malahide has reviewed this application and has no objections to it, subject to the provided conditions. The Conservation Authority similarly has no concerns, and county engineering has reviewed this and has indicated the subject site is not on a county road. So the application is consistent with both the provincial policy statement and the County of Elgin official plan regarding surplus lot creation in agricultural areas. As such, planning staff recommends approval subject to the following conditions. A digital copy of the draft and final deposited reference plan be provided to the County of Elgin. Solicitor undertaking to provide a copy of registered deed for the severed parcel once completed. Municipal addressing to be provided to Elgin County from the local municipality prior to final approval to the satisfaction of Elgin County planning. Additionally, it is recommended that the following conditions from the Township of Malahide be included as conditions for consent. That the applicant initiate and assume, if required, all engineering costs associated with the preparation of a revised assessment schedule in accordance with the Drainage Act, RSO 1990 as amended, with full deposit to be paid in full to the township prior to the condition being fulfilled. If the deposit does not cover the cost of the revised assessment schedule, the applicant will be liable for any additional costs incurred. Any required road widening is to be complete, or the necessary agreements are in place with sufficient security posted to cover the cost of the works prior to the condition being deemed fulfilled. All outstanding work orders or bylaw enforcement issues be resolved to the satisfaction of the chief building official prior to the condition being deemed fulfilled. That the necessary deeds, transfers, and charges for certificates and or instruments necessary for the registration be submitted in triplicate prior to the certification, all of which are to be fully executed. That all applicable property taxes, municipal fees, and charges be paid to the municipality prior to the stamping of the deeds. That an electronic version of the reference plan be submitted to the satisfaction of the municipality. That the applicants initiate and assume all planning costs associated with the required zoning amendment as required with the Ontario Planning Act, with such cost to be paid in full to the township, and that the required process be successfully completed prior to the condition being deemed fulfilled. And that the Township of Malahide be satisfied that the associated consent application E 5221 be completed prior to the stamping of any deeds.
Thank you. Are there any questions of any of the members? No questions?
I move.
Moved by John Andrews, second by Rosemary. All in favor? Carried. We'll now proceed with E5221. Take notice that an application that is made by John and David Lowen, 51477 Glencoe Line, Aylmer, for consent pursuant to section 53 of the Planning Act 1990 as amended to sever lands municipally known as 51432 Woollyville Line, Township of Malahide. The applicants propose to sever a parcel of the width of 4.877 meters, 16 feet, and a depth of 971.28 meters, 3,186.620 feet, and an area of 0.7 hectares, 1.16 acres, to be conveyed to the property directly to the west of the severed lands located at 51477 Glencoe Line. The owners are retaining 37.5 hectares, 92.66 acres proposed to remain in agricultural use. And applicants or agents are with us.
We lost David.
Who wishes?
I'm here.
Okay, David, thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks.
Okay, Ashleen, I'll ask you to go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Township of Malahide has reviewed this application and has no concerns subject to the conditions they've provided. Catfish Creek Conservation Authority has no concerns and county engineering also has no concerns. This application This application for consent is consistent with the provincial policy statement and the County of Elgin official plan regarding lot adjustments in agricultural areas. As such, planning staff recommends approval subject to the following conditions. A digital copy of the draft and final deposited reference plan be provided to the County of Elgin. Solicitor undertaking to provide a copy of registered deed for the severed parcel once completed. That the severed lands are deeded in the same name and interest as the abutting lot at 51477 Glencoe Line. And that section 50 subsection 3 of the Planning Act applies to any future consent affecting the same lands. And that municipal addressing to be provided to Elgin County from the local municipality prior to final approval to the satisfaction of Elgin County planning. Additionally, it is recommended that the following conditions from the Township of Malahide be included as conditions for this consent. That the applicant initiate and assume, if required, all engineering costs associated with the preparation of a revised assessment schedule in accordance with the Drainage Act as amended, with a deposit to be paid in full to the township prior to the condition being deemed fulfilled. If the deposit does not cover the costs of the revised assessment schedule, the applicant will be billed for any additional costs incurred. Any required road widening is to be complete or necessary agreements are in place with sufficient security posted to cover the costs of the works prior to the condition being deemed fulfilled. That all outstanding work orders or bylaws or issues be resolved to the satisfaction of the chief building official prior to the condition being deemed fulfilled. That the necessary deeds, transfers, and charges for certificates and or instruments necessary for the registration will be submitted in triplicate prior to the certification, all of which are to be fully executed. That all applicable property taxes, municipal fees, and charges be paid to the municipality prior to stamping of the deeds. An electronic version of the reference plan be submitted to the satisfaction of the municipality. That the applicants initiate and assume all planning costs associated with the necessary planning applications for the existing transport truck and or auto repair business operating at 51477 Glencoe Line, specifically on part of lots 23 and 24, concession or NTR, specifically described as part 4 on 11R-7037, with such costs to be paid in full to the township, and that the required processes be successfully completed prior to the condition being deemed fulfilled, or that the Township of Malahide be satisfied that such business has ceased to operate. and that all required land dedications to the township of Malahide are completed prior to the stamping of the deed, specifically road widening along the legal line, and a turning block of sufficient area and at a location along the legal line. The above noted land dedications shall be to the satisfaction of the township of Malahide Director of Public Works.
Are there any questions of any of the members?
Make motion.
Moved by Rosemary,
Second.
seconded by Dennis. All in favor? It's carried.
All right. Yes.
Now, I'd like to, I missed the last one, but I was putting these two together, 5121 and 5221. The decision rendered today for these applications will be circulated within 15 days after the notice. There is a 20-day appeal period for the giving of the notice of decisions in which any person or public body may appeal the decision or any condition imposed. If no appeal is received within 20 days of the giving of the notice, the provisional consent becomes final. The applicant has 1 year to meet the conditions imposed and submit the necessary documents for certification, or the consent will lapse and a new application will be required. Please leave the identification signs in place until the appeal period ends, after which they can be removed. If you would like to be notified of today's decision, please request a copy by contacting Ashleen Laverty at elgin.ca. The comment of the comment package is also available upon request and includes all correspondence received. Thank you. Okay. We can now proceed. It's 65-21. An application is made by John and Jane Crane of 14867 Putnam Road, Springfield, Ontario, for consent pursuant to Section 53 of the Planning Act 1990 as amended to sever lands municipally known as 45561 Elm Line, Municipality of Central Elgin. The applicant to sever a parcel with a frontage of 67 meters, 219.81 feet along Elm Line by a depth of 68 meters, 223.09 feet, and an area of 0.4556 hectares, 1.12 acres, containing one residence surplus to the needs of the owner. Barn has been removed. The owners are retaining 20.310 hectares, 50.19 acres proposed to remain in agricultural use. Do we have any applicants or agents and interested parties who wish to speak to this application? Please introduce themselves to the committee.
I'm Jim Crane, and I'm listening in the conversation. And if you have any questions for me, I'm certainly willing to try to answer them to the best of my knowledge.
Thank you, Mr. Crane. Ashleen, I'll ask you for comments, please.
Thank you, Mr. The Municipality of Central Elgin has reviewed this application and they have no concerns subject to their provided conditions. County engineering has no concerns subject to the provided conditions related to road widening and entrance permits, and the Conservation Authority provided no comments. This application for consent is consistent with the provincial policy statement and the County of Elgin official plan regarding lot creation for surplus dwellings, in agricultural areas. As such, planning staff is of the opinion that the application is acceptable from a planning perspective and recommends approval subject to the following conditions. That the owner dedicate lands along the frontage of the severed and retained lots/parcels up to 15 meters from the center line of construction of Elm Line, County Road 56 to the County of Elgin for the purposes of road widening if the right-of-way is not already to that width, to the satisfaction of the county engineer, all costs to be borne by the owner. That if necessary, an entrance permit be obtained from Elgin County for a new entrance to the severed and or retained parcel, all costs to be borne by the owner. A digital copy of the draft and final deposited reference plan be provided to the County of Elgin. solicitor undertaking to provide a copy of registered deed for the severed parcel once completed, and municipal addressing to be provided to Elgin County from the local municipality prior to final approval to the satisfaction of Elgin County planning. It is recommended that the following conditions from the municipality of Central Elgin also be included as conditions for consent. Excuse me. Approval of approval of a zoning bylaw amendment to prohibit residential dwellings on the retained lot. Written confirmation from a licensed well installer that a well has been constructed on the severed lot and provides the quality of potable water required by provincial standard. A copy of the reference plan be provided to the municipality of Central Elgin, and a drainage reassessment be done if necessary at the owner's expense. Thank you.
Any questions of the members?
Couple of questions. In the Central Elgin planner's comments to us, he listed a bunch of previous consent applications. Was that just for information? That doesn't have any impact on our decision making, does it?
Not believe so, otherwise.
So on page 59 of our package, he just, for some reason, I've never seen that before where they've listed previous severances. So if that doesn't impact it, that's fine. You also, Aislinn, you also sent out a question about the laneway. Did that get resolved with Mr. Crane?
It did, yes.
And where will the new laneway be?
They are going to put a new access point into the field. And then they're gonna have to, I believe, they've proposed to remove one of the laneways into the house. But maybe Mr. Crane can speak to that.
Did you hear that question, Mr. Crane?
Yes, I didn't want to cut in on, yes, we are planning on putting a new laneway in there. We'll be getting a contractor to do it and put it into your specifications of the municipality, and we'll make it nice and wide because machinery today is wide, so that's what we plan on doing. And it'll be basically just on the west side of the property we're severing. And you talked about water wells. We're in contact with J.B. Wilson's on well drilling. Actually, they're supposed to come down someday this week and plot out a spot where the well might go. So we're definitely going to have a well in there, hopefully in the very near future. And anyways, I hope you can have. We did a major cleanup on that place, and when this place, hopefully there's new siding was on the house, and it's a much more respectable property to the municipality, because those properties were getting pretty run down there, and I like to see things right up to snuff, and hopefully for an old house it'll look pretty nice when it's all finished.
Yes.
A couple more questions. Mr. Crane, it's nobody's living in that house now. Is that correct?
Nobody's living in it. That's right. Nobody lives in it right now. That's right.
You're just going to fix that one up, right? You're not going to tear it down and build a new house?
No. That house is going to be it's going to be renovated. That is for sure. There's a very good foundation of that house. It looks a lot crappier on the outside, but inside it's structurally very sound.
All right. And there's seems to be a driveway on the east side of that house. Is that correct? Cutting in behind the house. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's a circular drive. And actually it's on any road, it's a very much of a safety feature if that's possible. You can just circle around when it's already situated like that. I'd like to see it stay that way if possible.
All right. Yeah, you're just going to have to be careful because you've got it running right over your septic line, right? And you don't want to be breaking or caving in the septic line. So you're going to want to be careful about what you do on that particular thing, or else you're going to end up with a very expensive repair.
Yes, I understand that, and it's been like that for the last 40 years or so, and it's structurally very. We had John Brown in there, and we had the tank cleaned by a company that he recommended, and he actually dug up the septic line for, oh my gosh, it must have been the line going out in there for 70 or 80 feet, and so it's certainly it's very stable ground in there, and it's been like that for years, but I do understand what you're saying.
Yeah. Okay. Any further questions?
Move it.
Moved by Dennis, seconder. John Andrews. All in favor? Carried. The decision rendered today for this application will be circulated within 15 days after the notice. There is a 20-day appeal period from the giving of the notice of decision in which any person or public body may appeal the decision or any condition imposed. If no appeal is received within 20 days of the giving of notice, the provisional consent becomes final. The applicant has 1 year to meet the conditions imposed and submit the necessary documents for certification, or the consent will lapse and a new application will be required. Please leave the identification signs in place until the appeal period ends, after which they can be removed. If you would like to be notified of today's decision, please request a copy by contacting Ashleen Laverty at alaverty@elgin.ca. A copy of the comment package is also available upon request and includes all correspondence received. Thank you.
Okay, this is Jim here again. Will you be sending me out a document in the mail in the near future of the conditions that we have to meet to get all this done, so we have it in writing, please?
Absolutely.
You will be getting that from Ashleen.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm all done right now for the
Yes.
time being?
Yes, you are.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cooperation, and we'll be in touch as soon as we get moving on things when we get the information, and thanks again.
Thank you. The next one is E66-21. Take notice, an application is made by Penn Hill Farms Limited, 9922 Penn Hill Road, Elmer, Ontario, for consent pursuant to section 53 of the Planning Act 1990, as amended to sever lands municipally known as 44581 Elm Line, Municipality of Central Elgin. The applicants propose to sever a parcel with a frontage of 484.69 meters, 1,590.19 feet along Elm Line by a depth of 836.13 meters, 2743.20 feet, and an area of 40.48 hectares, 100.3 acres, and to retain 64.9 hectares, 160.4 acres, both proposed to remain in agricultural use. Applicants or agents and interested parties who wish to speak to this application, please introduce themselves to the committee.
Hello, it's Helen Button here. I'm a solicitor and agent for the applicant.
Thank you very much. I'll now ask Ashleen to speak to this.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The municipality of Central Elgin has reviewed this application and have no concerns, subject to the recommended conditions. County engineering has no concerns, subject to the included road widening condition, and the Conservation Authority provided no comments. So both the severed and retained lots are over 40 hectares, being 40.48 and 64.9 hectares respectively. That meets the criteria of the official plan for agricultural lot creation. A portion of the lands have a woodland overlay on them. It will be maintained as it currently exists. There are no new lots being created apart from the split of the farmland, so staff is confident there will be negative impacts on the resource. Overall, this application is consistent with both the provincial policy statement and complies with the County of Elgin official plan regarding lot creation in agricultural areas. As such, planning staff is of the opinion that the application is acceptable from a planning perspective and recommends approval subject to the following conditions. That the owner dedicate lands along the frontage of the severed and retained lots/parcels up to 15 meters from the center line of construction of Elm Line, County Road 56 to the County of Elgin for the purposes of road widening if the right-of-way is not already to that width. For the satisfaction of the county engineer, all costs to be borne by the owner. A digital copy of the draft and final deposited reference plan be provided to the County of Elgin. Solicitor undertaking to provide a copy of registered deed for the separate parcel once completed, and municipal addressing to be provided to Elgin County from the local municipality prior to final approval to the satisfaction of Elgin County planning. Additionally, it is recommended that the following conditions from the municipality of Central Elgin be included as conditions for consent. The payment of cash in lieu of the dedication of 5% of land for parkland purposes. A copy of the reference plan be provided to the municipality of Central Elgin, and a drainage reassessment be done if necessary at the owner's expense.
Any questions from any of the members?
I'll move it.
Moved by Dennis, seconded by Jack. All in favor? It's carried. The decision rendered today for this application will be circulated within 15 days after the notice. There is a 20-day appeal period from the giving of the notice of that decision, in which any person or public body may appeal the decision or any condition imposed. If no appeal is received within 20 days of the giving of notice, the provisional consent becomes final. The applicant has 1 year to meet the conditions imposed and submit the necessary documents for certification, or the consent will lapse and a new application will be required. Please leave the identification signs in place until the appeal period ends, after which they can be removed. If you would like to be notified of today's decision, please request a copy by contacting Ashleen Laverty at 8laverty@elgin.ca. A copy of the comment package is also available upon request and includes all correspondence received. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Minutes early for the next one.
Didn't you say at our last meeting, a bit more of these? Yeah. All but this one is basically that, right? Yeah, the bar. This one is just. Oh, this was just the last one, but I mean, majority of the ones that are actually are farm grown. Pay for the land.
Yeah, the option. Sell it. But you see, this one just, I mean, it's probably someone, I heard something that neighbor wants to buy it. Its problem is, besides all these farms, one person can't vote.
I was gonna ask you, was there something missing on this, because I don't have your base about all this consolidation going on.
Part of it is, it's getting big, then now it's getting to the point, a lot of these farms are getting so big, they don't have to sell them.
They're not known for,
Like you see, for a young person, why go buy a farm? Qualify for what they call beginning farming, which is 500,000. 100-acre farm today is worth $2 million. So basically, a young person.
destroying our young people's future.
Yeah, like I got a son and daughter both now love to buy a farm, but there's no way they can ever afford to buy a farm. They'll ever get money to buy it.
So how do we start limiting the size and consolidating? I mean, that gets into a real rat.
Yeah, it's, if somebody's willing to pay the money to buy them.
It's like you didn't put your name tag on.
It's gonna become a.
Oh, I don't think I have.
It's becoming,
I thought you had one before there. Not name tag, but your plate.
Okay.
there's a.
Just say secretary
That
treasurer.
one's gone up at Burwell on the street.
No, I think last time I joked that I should have stolen my name tag
Really
from
big
the city of London because they told me I could take it, but I was like, well, why won't I need this? And it turns out that my name was secretary treasurer.
We must have a budget to be able to buy one of those for you.
Well, it doesn't really help people because no one can see my name anyways, so you know.
Just looks
Hey,
more,
Laverty.
just looks more professional.
If you got 80 properties, why else can be built? You get two.
I'll make a note.
7, okay. And, Ashley, no, so
Oh, it's looking at my desk.
67, the next one?
We got one.
Okay, So, you can go get, because they'll be up in that minute.
They never threw anything on that one, so they're probably still.
I was pretty sure the name-
Someone here for 67, actually in person, so.
How you,
Have the ownership.
how you gonna do, how you gonna deal with this next one? This is the one where somebody's gonna object.
Not enough to deal with it. Spoke to John.
$3 million to get my daughters.
We could be selling calendars. Our Swans is putting out a calendar this year for 15.
Policy, it's a plan, it's a policy.
Month has a picture of a swan from up around Port Franks. Yeah,
They like to hang out in Port Franks?
Nothing.
pardon me? I guess they do because my sister has a friend up there.
And it takes me.
We'll call the meeting to order again, and we'll be dealing with E6721. Application E6721. Take notice that application has been made by John Lamb, 20183 Marsh Line, Rodney, Ontario, for a consent pursuant to section 53 of the Planning Act 1990, as amended to sever lands municipally known as 20183 Marsh Line, Municipality of West Alvin. The applicants propose to sever a parcel with a frontage of 77.26 meters, 253.47 feet along Marsh Line by a depth of 104.54 meters, 342.97 feet, and an area of 0.8093 hectares, 1.99 acres, containing one residence, barn, and shed surplus to the needs of the purchasing farmer. The owners are retaining 13.2 hectares, 32.6 acres proposed to be added to the neighboring farm property to remain in agricultural use. Do we have any applicants or agents and interested parties who wish to speak to this application? Please introduce themselves to the committee.
I'm the purchaser. And yeah, that house is a surplus dwelling to be.
Who are you?
I'm Adrian DeWild. Ed DeWild.
Ed Wild?
Yeah, Adrian Ed DeWild.
Thank you. I'll now ask Ashleen to proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This application is a surplus dwelling that is surplus to the needs of the purchasing farmer rather than the owner. We are aware that we did approve an application like this previously, however, that was an error. And after new legal interpretation and in dealing with our county lawyer, it has been determined that the only person who can apply for this consent, being the surplus farm dwelling, is the owner, chargee, or the agent of the owner or chargee. Mr. Lamb does not qualify, the current owner, to have a surplus farm dwelling because it is not the result of consolidation. Ed DeWild does not currently own the property, and therefore he can't make the application regardless of if the sale agreement is in place. And at this point, a purchaser cannot be an applicant, though we've spoke before about some proposed changes to the Planning Act coming up, which will amend that. This information is based on a conversation I had with the county lawyer, John Hogan. So at this point, I would like to recommend deferral because it is not consistent with the provincial policy statement or the official plan regarding lot creation for surplus dwellings until such time that the owner can prove that it is surplus to them. But should you guys choose to support this application, the following conditions are provided from Elgin County. A digital copy of the draft and final deposited reference plan be provided to the County of Elgin. Solicitor undertaking to provide a copy of registered deed for the severed parcel once completed. Excuse me. Municipal addressing to be provided to Elgin County from the local municipality prior to final approval to the satisfaction of Elgin County planning. Additionally, it would be recommended that the following conditions from the municipality of West Elgin be included as conditions for consent if supported. That the applicant meet all the requirements, financial and otherwise, of the municipality to the satisfaction and clearance of the municipality. That the applicant provides a description of lands to be severed, which can be registered in the land registry office to the satisfaction and clearance of the municipality. that the applicant solicitor provides an undertaking to the municipality to provide a copy of the registered deed for the severed parcel once the transaction has occurred, that the applicant successfully applied to the municipality for a zoning bylaw amendment for the severed parcel and having such rezoning of the zoning bylaw come into full force and effect pursuant to the Planning Act to the satisfaction and clearance of the municipality, that the applicant shall have a private water well assessment completed on the severed parcel to ensure the drinking water source is safe for human consumption to the satisfaction and clearance of the municipality, that the applicant have a septic system assessment completed by a qualified individual on the proposed severed parcel to ensure that the lands are suitable for a privately owned and operated septic system, that the applicant have a drainage reapportionment completed pursuant to the Drainage Act to the satisfaction and clearance of the municipality, that the applicant solicitor provides an undertaking to the municipality to provide a copy of the registered deed for the retained parcel prior to the transfer of the severed parcel by transferring retained parcel to the purchasing farmer as part of a farm consolidation with the abutting lands to the west once the transaction has occurred to the municipality. That prior to final approval of the county is advised in writing by the municipality how the above noted conditions have been satisfied. And finally, that all conditions noted shall be fulfilled within 1 year of the notice of decision so that the County of Elgin is authorized to issue the certificate of consent pursuant to the Planning Act. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley. Any questions? First of all, any questions from the members? Yes, Mr. Wild?
We went to a lawyer and drawn up the agreement, and the way my lawyer says that the day before it goes into my name or my corporation's name, and then that is a surplus dwelling, and then the deed gets stamped, and then the next day it gets conveyed to John Lamb. Now, we've done all the conditions, basically, like the septic and all that. We've already had that all done, and a survey of the property. A draft of the survey. It isn't completely done, but.
Members have any questions? John?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Ashleen, effectively, not to repeat your words, but basically, one was passed and that was in error. This one would, if we pass this, if we approve this, we are going contrary to the advice of county council, county solicitor, I beg your pardon.
If we approve this, we are going against the advice of the county solicitor as well as going against the policies of our own official plan.
That's right.
So we would be repeating an error that's already been made and there's no sanction for this at all.
That would be correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions of members? Jack?
For further clarification then, if this property that's proposed to be severed was purchased first, then that would put the owner in the position to apply to have the surplus farm dwelling severed off of the farmland. Is that right? And that's the way that the official plan reads right now?
Yes.
Just to clarify that issue.
My lawyer, Gary Merritt has told me he's done this before. So I don't know whether the laws have changed now a little bit, so.
Any further? Nancy, do you have anything to say?
I don't, through you, Mr. Chair. There's an agreement, obviously, of purchase and sale in place, but after speaking with the solicitor this morning, it would seem that that is not sufficient because it does not they are not actually the owner. It's merely a agreement in place, I guess you could say. And nothing prevents that agreement from, I guess, being not followed through. So at this time, based on what we've heard from the county solicitor, that's the information we have, so.
Yes, I agree. It doesn't matter. It doesn't meet the conditions now. You have a question, Dennis?
We're not, I think everybody's in agreement of what we want to do. We're kind of tied because we've got this provincial rule.
Yeah, I understand.
So I'd be willing to make a motion that we defer this without any extra cost to the landowner. And just sit down with your lawyer and the current owner, and it seems to me it should be a relatively easy fix for a lawyer to come up with an agreement between you and the other gentleman to fix this.
That's why him and I went to the lawyer to make.
Yeah, I know.
So nobody can back out of the deal or whatever.
But and Aisling can show you the section within, that you can show your lawyer and say, it's gotta be the farmer declaring it surplus to his needs, not a future owner. So I don't think it's that complicated, and Aisling can give you the exact wording in the act to show your lawyer, but we're kind of tied. But I think we're all in agreement with what we want.
Could you guys, accept the application providing that I buy the property prior to I own the property and then the severance goes through?
I don't think we can.
The guy that's retaining the building is worried about, he doesn't wanna, then he don't want 3 times more money because the housing market, so. Like if you guys made it a condition that I have to own the farm a week or 2 before and then the severance goes through. Or the severance will go through on the condition that I own the property, because we are like, the bylaw, go ahead.
Ashley has something to say first.
It has to be, it has to be surplus to the current owner, so the only way I can figure this would work would be buy the entire property and then you submit the application as the owner. You can now prove that this dwelling is surplus to you, it's a result of consolidation, you don't need the house, and then you go through this process and give the house back to the man you're buying the lands off of. How that works legally and price wise, that's not our business.
Yeah.
But it could work.
Jack?
Yeah, Ed, as a suggestion, you have a side agreement with the current owner now.
Yeah.
Just going to your point that you just made, you could have a side agreement with the current owner now that you're gonna buy the entire property and then you're going to sever it off for him to purchase that X number of dollars. That would alleviate any concerns he has of you charging him twice as much as what it's worth or whatever. Does that make sense?
I've done deals, I've done a couple severances before where I bought the farm and they sold the house to them for $1.
Yeah.
After the deal was off, but the property was personally in my name.
Yes. It's not just this one that's come
This one's
about.
a little different.
Yeah.
But that's what the lawyer advised us to do, so.
Any other questions of anybody?
Well, I just got one comment here. Like, I'm wondering why West Elgin's plan said this meets the provincial policy statement when it doesn't.
That's right.
And that causes a lot of confusion because it makes you guys think you're coming here and it's right, and he's obviously not right.
I have that marked as well.
And the only other question I have on it, looking at it, is you're asking for 1.99 acres. Do you need land behind the house or barn, wherever it is there?
You've got these blueberry plants there, not going along with what,
No, it's
making a condition that takes some of that backyard out, so many feet behind the barn, that's all he needs to keep his horse.
it's just one of the concerns that we have to be careful as.
I don't need this piece of land, but it's right, butting right against one of my other farms and, it just makes that field bigger.
You can
Further to your comment, that was a comment that I had written down too, that it's 1.99 acres, which is larger than the norm. And I'm looking at the, the overhead on the screen. And it's longer than the property that's right beside it. It would make more sense. Excuse me. Because this severance, I can see why the current owner wants his blueberry patch.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's not a good enough reason to have that much extra land. There's 116 feet behind the barn. And if it was matched up with the property that's severed off beside it,
That would make some more sense.
that would make a lot more sense,
I agree with that.
right? And again, if he's concerned about his blueberry patch, that could be worked out with a little side agreement
Yeah.
between you and him. And a future owner, I don't know not gonna get personal, I don't know the age of John Lamb or anything, but a severance is forever, and a future owner of John Lamb's property, years, decades down the road, might rip that blueberry patch out. So it's, in my opinion, not a good enough reason for that large a severance, my comment.
Do we have any other questions on this? And basically, we're looking at, do we go with what our lawyer has said on the, what is it? Do we have somebody make a motion?
I'll throw one out. I'll move and then we can amend it if we want. But I move that we defer this application. That there be no additional fees because of the confusion around it. And that's the short form of it. And then in behind the scenes, I don't think we need to put in the motion, but you would meet with Aisling and Aisling would give you the information that you need to take back to your lawyer and then resubmit the application to us after that. So the motion, the simple motion would be deferred without any additional costs and bring it back at your convenience.
And then take possession of the property if you'll go for it.
Yes.
And that way I got a stamp deed. It's
Yes.
mine, and then,
Yes.
and I convey it to him afterwards and maybe make that backyard smaller too.
That would,
Agreed.
that would be wise.
Yeah.
I'll second it.
Especially with the joining neighbors, right?
Yep.
I'm trying to buy the next one door, but they're not ready to sell, so then I own the whole concession.
And we have a seconder on this.
John,
Moved and seconded. Any further?
one more comment. Like, that line could be moved, Ed, but if he wants to keep those blueberries for whatever,
Yeah.
you know, that's between you and him.
Yeah, we'll make an aside agreement if he wants to keep that for so many years. Yeah,
In your agreement on him buying the house, like,
yeah.
I would suggest have that worked right in the bill of sale, so it's legally part of it, so. Like, I can see his concern that, you know, you buy it and then you're gonna say, but if you have it worked right in the agreement, I think he should be satisfied that he is covered.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Did you read that for us again, just please, Doc?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The motion was made by Dennis and it was to defer this application at no additional cost.
And seconded by
John.
John Andrews, yes. Any further discussion? All in favor? It's carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ed.
And this, so I don't read this decision.
Follow up on the letter with the applicant. We generally have about a year to, that's hopefully within a year.
Before we get to the next one, can we, yeah, I also had a mark that the planner made an error in decision at the township level. That should not have happened at his level. So they need to be informed to follow the policy and read the policy as well.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we can also follow up with the planners for each of the municipalities and just let them know that we've had these discussions. We have that information that we're just finalizing the information from John Hogan. So we'll share it with the fellow planners as well, just so they're aware. And just so you're also aware, this application came in right. The deadline was after when we had our discussion early. So normally we would have caught it early and had this discussion up front, not probably tried to discuss with the applicant deferring it even before the application came. Unfortunately, timing didn't work out, so.
And I think that's really important that we said no extra cost because of the
Exactly.
confusion situation.
Yeah, obviously, it was a confusing situation. Normally, we would have caught it early, but we didn't, so yeah, exactly.
Okay, now we will go to application E68-21.
Ian?
I just had one final question through you, Mr. Chair, Nancy, to add to the confusion. When the new provincial policy statement is ratified, would this have been okay?
With the new planning act changes, through you, Mr. Chair, well, the policies of the PPS don't change and neither do our official plan. The planning act will allow for somebody to be an applicant. So for instance, Mr. Mr. Lamb could be the applicant. But does that change the policies themselves, which I think require still the owner? So I guess that will be something we'll have to grapple with when that comes into force. Because now somebody else can make an application, but can they still demonstrate that they're meeting the policies based on what we've discussed?
Farm dwelling.
Exactly. Are you still the owner and is the surplus to your needs.
Right.
So
It's confusing.
it is, it will be, and it probably won't, until we actually see one in front of us, that's when we'll actually probably grapple with it. But, the fact that an applicant can be someone else doesn't really change the fact that the way that our legislation is worded says
Surplus to
to the needs of the owner, so.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
yes, okay, we'll deal now with E 68-21. Take notice that an application has been made by Pioneer Hay Sales Limited, 29013 Pioneer Line, Dutton, Ontario. Consent, for a consent pursuant to section 53 of the Planning Act 1990 as amended to sever lands municipally known as 21934 Johnson Line, Municipality of West Elgin. The applicants propose to sever a parcel with a frontage of 19.65 meters, 64.46 feet along Johnson Line by a depth of 218.94 meters, 718.31 feet, and an area of 0.6082 hectares, 1.5 acres, containing one residence, a shop, and a garden shed, surplus to the needs of the owners. The owners are retaining 24.57 hectares, 60.73 acres to remain in agricultural use. Do we have any applicants or agents and interested parties who wish to speak to this application? Please introduce themselves to the committee.
Dan McKillop.
Thank you. And I'll ask Ashleen to proceed with the comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Additionally, this proposal includes two easement plans, one for an underground hydro line and one for an underground water line, each across the retained lands in favor of the severed lands as seen on the provided sketches and survey. The municipality of West Elgin have reviewed this application and they have no concerns subject to their provided conditions. County engineering has reviewed this application and they have no concerns provided the conditions related to road widening and entrance permit are included. And the conservation authority provided no comments. So this application for consent is consistent with both the provincial policy statement and complies with the County of Elgin official plan policies regarding lot creation for surplus dwellings in agricultural areas. As such, planning staff is of the opinion that the application is acceptable from a planning perspective and recommends approval subject to the following conditions. That the owner dedicate lands along the frontage of the severed and retained lots / parcels up to 15 meters from the center line of construction of Johnston Line, County Road 6 to the County of Elgin for the purposes of road widening, if the right of way is not already to that way, to the satisfaction of the county engineer, all costs to be borne by the owner. That if necessary, an entrance permit be obtained from Elgin County for a new entrance to the severed and or retained parcels, all costs associated with this are borne by the owner. A digital copy of the draft and final deposited reference plan be provided to the County of Elgin. Solicitor undertaking to provide a copy of registered deed for the separate parcel once completed. And municipal addressing to be provided to Elgin County from the local municipality prior to final approval to the satisfaction of Elgin County planning. Additionally, it is recommended that the following conditions from the municipality of West Elgin be included as conditions for this consent. That the applicant meet all requirements, financial and otherwise, of the municipality to the satisfaction and clearance of the municipality. That the applicant provides a description of the lands to be severed, which can be registered in the land registry office to the satisfaction and clearance of the municipality. That the applicant's solicitor provides an undertaking to the municipality to provide a copy of registered deed for the severed parcel once the transaction has occurred to the municipality. That the applicant successfully applied to the municipality for a zoning bylaw amendment for the severed parcel and retained parcel, and having such rezoning of zoning bylaw come into full force and effect pursuant to the Planning Act. That the applicant shall have a private water well assessment completed on the retained parcel to ensure that the drinking water source is safe for human consumption. That the applicant have a septic system assessment be completed by a qualified individual on the proposed severed parcel to ensure that the lands are suitable for a privately owned and operated septic system. That the applicant shall engage a qualified designer and contractor to install a new septic system on the proposed severed parcel through the building permit process pursuant to the Building Code Act. That the applicant have a drainage reapportionment completed pursuant to the Drainage Act. That the applicant's solicitor prepare an easement agreement between the severed and retained parcels for the existing privately owned and operated individual well and associated private water line. Be registered on title of the owner's cost of this. And that the applicant solicitor provides an undertaking to the municipality to provide a copy of registered notice of easement for the water well and water line once the transaction has occurred to the municipality.
Any comments from any of the members? Dude first.
Yeah, so I just want verification here. These proposed easements are not part of this severance application, right? They're included, so when we give this severance application, they are gonna be registered as part of it, okay? And the other question is, on the driveway there, I'm just wondering why the edge of the cultivated land is over close to the driveway now, and the proposed line is quite a bit further over into the work field. Wonder if the agent could comment on that.
Again, I was only going by the survey done by the survey company. So if it shows that the survey company are the ones that put the pins in, so I can't speak to it exactly, but there's no reason to be over there. No physical reason to be over there, but it is a long laneway and it may have come at a different angle. I'm not sure.
Yeah, because where the laneway meets the road is the furthest part from the westerly property line, and it's approximately 12 meters. So I just wondered why, we've added that extra approximately 7 meters on there, which actually from where the work line is now, it's about 6 meters over from where the edge of the work ground is now. So that was my question on that.
Again, we tried to stay within the guidelines of the number of acres put on the application, and so I assume they've assessed that difference, because we also took away land on the east side of the lot, so around the house, and that's why we had to redo a septic system. So I think they've taken it into consideration. At the end of the day, it's still an acre and a half, roughly.
Yeah.
I had the same concern, the same question, that I just wondered why we needed 20 meters for the width of a laneway. That's like a road allowance, including ditches. So it seems excessive, especially when looking at the surveyor's sketch on page 111. It clearly shows the width being extended into that agricultural field quite a bit. So I just wondered if it's viable to have it that wide, if there's a need to have it that wide.
I guess I done a little measuring on that, and about the least we could make it would be about 16 meters. And that only drops the size of the property 1/10 of an acre.
I see. Okay.
Moving it would be very minimal change on it.
Okay.
And it would close it up tighter, and sometimes these real properties out in the middle of the country that get too secluded are just a perfect spot to get hit for being robbed too. So the amount it would make it smaller, I don't know if it's an issue to worry about.
Good to know.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just, Ashleen, the issue about the MDS is exempt, it's still something I'm not particularly familiar with. Is that just simply because it's not in the municipality's official plan and it allows it to be exempt?
I'm afraid I don't understand your question.
There's a barn within 750 meters, but it's MDS exempt as per guideline 9 of the MDS guidelines, as there's no specific policies contained in the OP requiring this aspect, and there are no existing livestock facilities on the retained parcel. I'm sorry, I'm reading that out from, so I didn't mean to read it rote, but is there a reason for that?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I will defer this question to Nancy because I am still not 100% clear on the MDS regulations.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the comment came from West Elgin or from us? That you're reading?
It's West Elgin.
Through you, Mr. Chair, so the guideline number 9 applies, if the barns are on the retained land, are on the surplus farm dwelling lands. If they're on the retained lands, then either an MDS calculation gets done to ensure there's no issues with livestock separation, or the applicant can demolish the barn essentially, or the barn is not capable of housing livestock and they can demonstrate that as well. In this particular case, as part of the application, what did they say? I'm not familiar with it. Did they say that maybe that the barns were not in,
I've got it.
Retained land.
they're not on the retained lands?
Barns.
Or on the severed surplus farm dwelling?
Barns are on the property across the road.
Oh, yeah, so that doesn't apply then.
Owner owns.
That's right, so,
It is, even though it's being used for livestock.
that's right, yes. So it doesn't apply because it's an existing circumstance, basically, is the way they look at it. The only situation it actually applies is if the barns are on the retained actual severed lands, because that's changing. Because now the relationship is to the surplus farm dwelling and the barn on the retained land, so that's a new parcel. Whereas before, that's an existing parcel. So that's why, that's the interpretation that OMAFRA has given us with respect to that.
Okay. Well, I got another one here, John.
Sorry. Yeah.
Okay, John?
Still a little fuzzy.
Yes, I'm sorry.
The way I understand it, correct me if I'm wrong, Nancy, but it already would have been dealt with either when those barns across the road were built.
Yeah.
That they would have had to have an MDS,
Or
when this surplus farm dwelling that we're looking at today was built, it would have been dealt with in the past.
Exactly.
By applying for a surplus farm dwelling,
But you're changing the property boundaries, but it only kicks in the OMAFRA consideration because of,
Would have been addressed when this house was built.
Yeah.
yeah, exactly, yeah. But now because you're changing the lot configuration, you're creating actually a new lot, it only applies to the new retained land. So that, because that's a new relationship that's being established.
Applies to the new retained lands?
Yeah, so if there was a barn on the retained lands, for instance,
Yes.
MDS would be considered,
Yeah, but it's not, it's across.
but it's not. This is on a different property completely, because that would have already been considered.
Okay.
It's not the easiest of things, I know, but that's the OMAFRA interpretation, so.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Dennis?
Couple of quick ones. That bush to the, I guess, to the west of the property, is that ever gonna be farmed? Anybody know that property? Is it just a wet slough?
Right behind the lot, you mean?
Yeah,
It's a bush lot.
part of the north is, yeah.
It's a bush lot.
Yeah.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I think it's actually designated under our official plan.
In a lot of our severances, we ask for those old sheds to be torn down. We're not gonna worry about that for this one?
The shed's not that old.
I don't think it's old.
Fairly new building. Like this house is only about 12 years old and the shed was built since then, so.
The shed.
Okay. And just last one, that obviously there was an easement for that, whatever the main farm is there, just up the road. It's a fairly old, that wasn't a recent severance or anything?
The other severance,
Yeah,
I have no idea when that severance went through now.
just wanna, but it's an old one. It doesn't, I'm just asking whoever knows that area. It wasn't done in the last, what's the township's rules for that or the county's rules, last 10 years, last 20 years?
It would have been done before we've changed to the current
Okay, that's fine. That's fine.
rules, yeah.
Any other questions?
I move. Let's go.
Moved by
Excuse me, Mr. Chair.
Yes,
It's Alec Bokoven. We have the barns across the road.
yes.
I have a question on the existing severance. Like, how do you get in that situation where you can sever two houses off of one property?
Just did it.
Through you, Mr. Chair, you can have two houses that are surplus as a result of consolidation, and we actually went over that with John Hogan when he met with us. It is possible to have two houses that are surplus to your operation.
On the same, depending on how many acres are left over after those severances, or how does that process work?
Consolidated.
You've got to have a certain size of farmland.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, And in respect to the MDS, all the MDS numbers were done when we built those barns, and they're all on file with West Elgin with our building permit.
Right.
Yes, there would be. So we have a motion moved by John, second by Duke. Any further questions? All in favor? It's carried. The decision rendered today for this application will be circulated within 15 days after the notice. There is a 20-day appeal period from the giving of the notice of decision in which any person or public body may appeal the decision or any condition imposed. If no appeal is received within 20 days of the giving of the notice, the provisional consent becomes final. The applicant has 1 year to meet the conditions imposed and submit the necessary documents for certification, or the consent will lapse and a new application will be required. Please leave the identification signs in place until the appeal period ends, after which they can be removed. If you would like to be notified of today's decision, please request a copy by contacting Ashleen Laverty at alaverty@elgin.ca. A copy of the comment package is also available upon request and includes all correspondence received. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So our next one is E69-21. Application number E69-21. Take notice that an application has been made by Lawrence Parker and Sons Limited, 44583 Dexter Line, Union, Ontario. Consent pursuant to section 53 of the Planning Act 1990 as amended to sever lands municipally known as 44589 Dexter Line, Municipality of Central Elgin. The applicants propose to sever a parcel with a frontage of 16.69 meters, 54.75 feet along Dexter Line by a depth of 150.64 meters, 494.22 feet, and an area of 0.505 hectares, 1.25 acres, containing one residence surplus to the needs of the owners. The owners are retaining 38.81 hectares, 95.989 acres to remain in agricultural use. Applicants or agents and interested parties who wish to speak to this application, please introduce themselves to the committee.
Good morning, Dave Rowe. I'm here just to answer any questions.
Thank you, Dave. I'll now ask Ashleen to proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The municipality of Central Elgin has reviewed this application and they have no objections subject to the recommended conditions. County engineering has no concerns subject to the provided conditions related to road widening and entrance permits, and the Conservation Authority offered no comments on this application. The subject site is within the agricultural area designation of our plan, and a portion of the subject site contains the woodlands overlay as per Appendix 1. The portion of the lands containing this woodland overlay will not be fragmented or impacted in any way by this application. So this application for consent is consistent with the 2020 provincial policy statement and complies with the County of Elgin official plan policies regarding lot creation for surplus dwellings in agricultural areas. As such, planning staff is of the opinion that the application is acceptable from a planning perspective and recommends approval subject to the following conditions. That the owner dedicate lands along the frontage of the severed and retain lots/parcels up to 15 meters from the center line of construction of Dexter Line, County Road 24, to the County of Elgin for the purposes of road widening if the right of way is not already to that width, to the satisfaction of the county engineer. That if necessary, an entrance permit be obtained from Elgin County for a new entrance to the severed and or retained parcels. All costs associated with this shall be borne by the owner. A digital copy of the draft and final deposited reference plan be provided to the County of Elgin. and solicitor undertaking to provide a copy of registered deed for the severed parcel once completed, and municipal addressing to be provided to Elgin County from the local municipality prior to final approval to the satisfaction of Elgin County planning. Additionally, it is recommended that the following conditions from the municipality of Central Elgin be included. Approval of a zoning bylaw amendment to prohibit residential dwellings on the retained lot. A copy of the reference plan be provided to the municipality of Central Elgin, and a drainage reassessment be done if necessary at the owner's expense.
Thank you. Any questions of any members?
Good question. David, the water line, it's on the Central Elgin water system. Is the pipe in from the road contained within the severed parcel?
That I'm not totally sure. I just don't know.
Well,
I'm just assuming that the pipe would follow up the laneway, but I don't know for sure, no.
Yeah, we should, I don't know how we verify that without an application, because we don't want to get into another easement.
Well, at the end of the day, they have to have water, and I would assume that's between the property owner and the service company. But there's no way I can tell right now because I simply don't know.
The water line has to be for the house. If it goes across the farmland, there's gotta be an easement for it. Because it's the municipality water line. Well, then it's gotta have, it's the same as the one we did.
Good question, Dennis.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yes.
If it turns out that the water line does require an easement later, you could always approve this now. It would just have to be another application to create that easement at a later time.
Do we make that a condition of the severance?
That's up. The municipality should have got it.
Don't know that we make that condition if it's the municipality's water line.
All right, David, we probably won't put that in as a condition, but for the landowner's own protection, if it's not within the severed parcel, I think it's strongly advised that they get an easement so that their drinking water is protected.
Yeah, that makes sense, and I'll check into that for my client. So,
Hey, Jack, you have a question?
Just a comment on page 135 of the application. There's the Husted survey, and it appears to me, I can't read the wording on there, but it appears that the water line does come inside, right beside the laneway. So comments already been made. Dave will look into it. That's good. But it does look like it's there to me.
Most of them are.
Yeah.
What page was that?
On the application, the pre-information package.
I couldn't tell from that where it was.
Oh, I think it's line right beside the driveway.
It's on the pre-application.
Driveway's fairly wide. I would think it's probably included. It'd be a good thing to make sure.
Yeah. Anyway, Dave can look into that and make sure it happens.
Any other questions?
Fairly straightforward. I'll move it, subject to the conditions.
Seconded by Rosemary. Any other questions? All in favor? It's carried. Decision rendered today for this application will be circulated within 15 days after the notice. There is a 20-day appeal period from the giving of the notice of decision in which any person or public body may appeal the decision or any condition imposed. If no appeal is received within 20 days of the giving of the notice, the provisional consent becomes final. The applicant has 1 year to meet the conditions imposed and submit the necessary documents for certification, or the consent will lapse and a new application will be required. Please leave the identification signs in place until the appeal period ends, after which they can be removed. If you would like to be notified of today's decision, please request a copy by contacting Ashleen Laverty at alaverty@elgin.ca. A copy of the comment package is also available upon request and includes all correspondence received. Thank you. Thank you, Dave. Okay, so that's specifications then, right? So we now have two items to discuss, is that Ashleen sent us a thing about the OACA training videos. And just a discussion to who is interested in taking potential participation.
Have these been modified since this committee was formed?
I am not sure of that.
Sure either.
And also the one video, if it's the same group of videos, the one that addresses visiting the owner is, I think would not be looked upon favorably by our legal counsel. We've had the lawyers speak to, our lawyers speak to us a couple of times about contacting anybody. And yet the one training video that does address visiting the owner, even though there are restrictions on it, seems more liberal than I think our lawyer would agree to. I certainly don't mind going through them again. I think they did a good job on that. But that one about visiting the individuals is, I think, out of line with what Elgin sees as appropriate.
I thought that we had talked about, we'd see him again, and Jack for sure has not seen him at all.
No, I'm interested in seeing them.
And then I thought we talked about having it here so that we could then maybe debate things like what John just brought up. And maybe not do them all at once, maybe, because they're only about 15 minutes each.
Yeah.
Pick one a month sort of thing, or a couple a month.
Well, I wouldn't want to drive in just for one 15-minute
No,
video.
no, I'm saying we do it as part of one of our meetings.
Oh, I see. Okay. I see.
Or I mean, yeah, we could have a special meeting where we just look at them
How
all.
many videos are there?
We did 4 15 minutes with discussions, an hour and a half, 2 hours.
Yeah, there's 6 of them, so
For them.
like today, we could have got 2, if we were doing them, we could have got 2 in and still been done by noon.
Yeah.
And I think that's the way to do it, but
I think it'd be a good thing to view, because when we heard them the first time, we were all pretty green to this. And now that we've been in it and we hear these videos, some circumstances we've come up to, I think
and
there'll be a lot of discussion that'll be positive.
We can hoop
and
them
there's a
all.
lot of changes in some of these, what we saw, be 3 years next spring.
Yeah, that's right.
There's gonna be some changes made in it, especially with what's coming up in the province with more and more in different areas on severances.
What's the agenda looking like for October?
There are 11 applications.
8.
So I think we may lose 2 of them because they are surplus to the purchasing farmer. And I told them we would just hold tight before we circulated any notice, and if they needed to be removed, they could be, just until we had the firm legal interpretation on what we had to do. So it might only be 9.
So that's the wish of the committee members.
If we get these, who do we OACA, we pay them, is it, their fee?
Yeah, there is. It's a municipal cost. It's $310, and you get all the videos for 3 weeks.
Only 3 weeks.
Only 3 weeks.
We can't rent one at a time or 2 at a time, eh?
No,
Cheap buggers.
I mean, I could always contact them and ask if it could go over like a 2-month period to hit 2 of our meetings or something, just explain that we only meet monthly.
Yeah.
See how they feel about that, because they do say that if you require additional time, like just let them know. So I could always look into that.
Is it $300 per person
No, I believe it's $300, like just.
to Elgin?
For viewing.
Oops.
Wire down there.
Anyway, I think, what was it, the feeling of the committee, do you want to do it? We should do it, I think, to get, update everybody and for Jack's to have a look at them too. And, but do we want to do it, let's say at Ashleen, see if we can do it over 3 months? Or 2 months?
3 and 3.
Could we not just do it all in one day?
I'm leaning more towards all at once.
I am.
Special meeting.
I'm personally leaning all, just one afternoon or just one morning, get in and get them done.
6 at 15 minutes, so you're looking at an hour and a half of viewing plus discussion. Could be 2 hours, 2.5 hours.
Say we started at 9, we could be done for sure by 11:30, 12.
Yeah, for sure.
And we're in a different meeting.
But Mr. Chair, what that is doing is putting us in a position where we aren't gonna have access to Tim Horton donuts or coffee.
Unless staff resolve that.
Bring some along.
What are we gonna do?
No, but the point John's making is a good one. We should, if we do that, we're gonna have a full schedule in October. For those of you who are working fields,
Yeah.
I would prefer not to have it in October.
so,
No, I would say we got
So November?
November, December.
Yep.
okay.
And I know December could be busy or,
We're gonna have snow in October anyway, Duke, so you won't be commenting.
Might not be that day though.
so what's the wish of the committee?
I'd say
Want to
November.
do it November, December, or
Yeah.
January, February?
I'd say November. December is always, like, we're so close to Christmas, that's always a tough time.
I would rather do November too, just have, set aside another morning that we can
Yep.
sit in here and have it.
Yep.
Through you, Mr. Chair, why don't we have the regular meeting in the morning and then we'll have lunch?
Yeah.
And then in the afternoon for an hour or two.
That's even
And
better.
then we'll pay the members for the day and,
We're here anyway.
yeah, exactly.
We're
Here
here
anyways,
anyway, and
you know,
what's the wish of the members?
if you want to do something like.
Happy with it?
Yep.
I'll move.
For the regular
John?
meeting.
It depends on the weather.
You'll be done by November, it'll be snowing.
End of no, mid,
We
mid
will
to.
done by November. We won't have 3,000 acres out by November.
If you do have to miss the day because something comes up and the weather is good and you need to take advantage of it, you do have access to the videos for the full 3 weeks. I
You
mean,
can come in again, yeah, come in.
Thank you,
What's our,
a friend and a gentleman. You have a nice day. I had a friend like you once before. I didn't like him either.
our regular November meeting will be towards the end of November, so let's punch it in for that. I'll move that. I like
Okay.
the suggestion
Moved by Jack, seconder,
Definitely not.
John Selden. Do we do that in the afternoon or after we're finished?
of the November meeting.
Yeah.
Darn it.
Why is that a conflict?
I don't like afternoon meetings.
Oh, I know.
That's,
It won't be very long. How's?
no, but it's like, I have things to do.
Oh, I see.
After these meetings, so
We could start at 7 in the morning if you like.
I would think more like 6 or.
5.
Doesn't matter to me.
And perhaps staff could look at the applications and see if there's some friendly people on there that wouldn't mind for
Days,
December meeting.
2 more.
No, no, I don't want, we don't want to do
Like
that.
that?
No, because the first thing we're gonna know, there's a lot of farms and a lot of areas that are gonna be coming up. I'm surprised the amount of people interested in. I could have 4 more from our area. Wow. People are coming out to buy farm and buying farms and wanna buy the houses. We got one farmhouse that they're looking at getting $1 million for. It was severed.
That house for $1 million.
Which one?
Dave's. Dave's.
Yeah, we are still.
I'm not sure he even qualified to sever that then.
Oh, this house has been severed for a number of years.
Oh,
They're coming to buy.
So we have a motion on the floor still, right?
Yes, that's what I'm gonna
So
say.
do we
Got a
want to
motion.
go, it's 2 months away,
Favor.
Rose, can you figure out that afternoon that you can't book anything else? It's 2 months from.
All in favor
I
for
already had something.
meeting in the afternoon? Yes, it's carried.
not enthusiastic.
Not enthusiastically, but.
I just think we're gonna have lots of the way it's,
I just thought the videos we could do at home. That's what I was thinking.
You still can.
Watch them at
Yeah, you still can.
Okay.
Still can.
Yeah.
You try and book them to come just before our meeting, then we got 3 weeks for people that want to see it at home, 3 weeks after that meeting, right? They're
Yeah.
available for
Yeah, sure. Yep, we can do that.
anybody that wants to do it at home, it's gonna be available.
I thought they were.
Yeah, I could try and watch one before we met and then discuss anything.
That would be good.
Make it a shorter meeting, right?
yeah,
As
we
long as you
can do
guys are
that.
okay with watching them like on your own time.
I just like the
I like the
discussion.
idea of getting together.
I like the discussions that come about.
Particularly,
And
yeah, we've been here working as a group. Let's do it together.
Those who can stay, and those who have got more, other jobs and other things.
You're about to say more important.
So
Yeah,
Well, this is for the November meeting, so we'll any further discussion we'll have at the October meeting where we are and what's doing. And revised application form review.
So I sent out the revised application form. Nancy and I have put some work into that, and I'm hoping you all have a chance to actually review it. Just wanted to have your thoughts on it, and if you have anything that is a red flag or.
John brought up a point. There is a clause in there that talks about farm visits. And forget the exact wording of it, but the landowner gives permission to the committee to go visit their land. And our lawyer was quite adamant that that's probably not a good idea. So is that something that's required to leave in the application, or should we?
But
so I missed that lawyer's conversation last month.
no, but this was when Steve Gibson was the lawyer.
Oh.
We all first sat,
Okay,
asked. But I have found, when I go to a rural place, you're gonna get seen anyway,
okay,
even taking pictures of the signs out there.
yep,
And I don't talk to them.
I don't either.
I make it a point that I do not speak.
take-
If they come out to ask me, I said I don't speak. Because
Please don't.
I know of a situation where a fella did make a statement and the family were so adamant in Huron County, were starting to go to court because he had made a decision, there was nothing wrong with this. And he didn't pass it. And after the second time, he got in trouble for saying,
So you're okay with leaving that clause in or taking it out?
oh, I think it should be in there. You can go and, you gotta visit when you see the signs are up.
Okay.
But you're not to jump, as Steve said, you weren't to speak to the owners.
I have asked the landowner where his signs were back,
Well, then,
because I wasn't sure where they were.
well, that's fine too, but if you
Yeah.
start asking your question,
Oh, no,
you can't answer.
signs.
You know, it's a straightforward, that's what Steve was getting at. You
Yeah.
can't make it, give him your thoughts.
And my second one was dealing with 23, 24, and 25. 23 and 24, 23 talks about, is the application consistent with provincial policy? 24, is it under any designated provincial plans? And 25 is pre-consultation. Pre-consultation is so critical, I know, but 23 and 24 are really technical things that the average landowner are not gonna know until they talk to the township. So if I was reading that as a landowner, like where do you even start? Provincial, you gotta read the right away, is a lawyer gonna read this? Like, it just seems like a lot of complexity for the landowner. Whereas if under number 25, municipality was responsible for telling them if 23 and 24 are applicable.
To you, Nancy, or Ashley, this form is filled out, the municipality sees it as well.
That form only has to be submitted to us.
Okay, but-
We don't require a pre-consultation, and we don't have a bylaw in place that says you have to for these applications. But we strongly encourage it, so when you're so if someone said, oh, how do I find this out? I would say, have you spoken to the municipality yet?
right.
And if they said no, I'd say, well, you need to talk to them and they'll let you know when you're talking to them.
Yeah, and I agree with you. And so that's why I would almost reverse those.
but our municipality says, who's your lawyer and who have you talked to? But when they're doing some of this form stuff. So they're advised.
But yeah, you are correct, that is probably the harder part for most applicants to fill in on their own.
Yeah,
And be the devil's advocate. Again, if this application is completed, we count on this information being correct. So I would say leave it in that they've already looked into or had someone else look into that it meets provincial policy statement.
Even if they haven't, that is part of our review as well.
And I think that's another thing, back to the previous point. I found by going to the visit, sometimes the information we get, when you actually get there, is not right. They've missed something, or something isn't far from the line as they say it is. So I think, especially on rural properties, that visit is pretty important.
That visit is important to see what they're talking about.
And I've had landowners come out, was there, you know, they start asking questions. I said, it's a committee decision. I'm one committee member. What I say doesn't mean anything.
Well, we've all felt that way all along.
But I'm getting paid for you guys to think that.
But it is getting, you gotta have the forms filled out right. And we found that with one in Dutton, when that couple from Malahide wanted to sever it and it didn't. So then they turned around and made a deal with the farmer next door. And that's one that we afterwards, and as I said, we should never have had it. That's the one Dave Dern. He doesn't live in town now. His address and everything are City of London. But it went through. He listed it. He filled the papers out because he's buying it. He signed a deal to buy the farm, so we took it that way. And I felt he was a farmer, but when I got looking to it more, he's not addressed to the rural area anymore. Everything's in London.
But yeah, part of what Dunwich conditions was that he had to be a bona fide farmer.
Yeah.
So for him to meet that condition, which I don't think he can, I don't know how that severance ever should have got all the way through, because he can't even meet the conditions they put in.
No, but we're gonna get more of that. That's where people are coming to buy this land, and that's what I'm saying. They're trying to buy, and it's gonna be harder to get the forms.
But
Don't you all see that in your areas?
But if they bring that to us and the local municipality has conditions in there,
Yeah.
which look like it can't, you know, it can't pass, we pass it, so then the onus is back on them for that person to meet their conditions. Am I not right on that?
See, Dutton turned that one down, remember, for the first, because they put their application in, but then they turned it down because they didn't live in the adjoining municipality. Which is part of it, you have to live in the adjoining municipalities to.
That's why, just confirms why going over this application and make sure we get it right
That's right.
is so important.
That's right.
Because if they don't complete each part of the application and they don't show that they're a bona fide farmer with lands already owned, then we deny it. The application is denied. Probably doesn't even get to our meeting because staff will see that it's not completed properly.
Municipality.
And unfortunately, I think some of the local municipalities send it here partly incomplete, the fact that land division can deal with it.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
I have a question on number 16, Ashley.
Yes.
Grantee's name, I put a question mark there. If I'm a person filling out this application for severance, my first question is, who's the grantee? I don't understand that. Does anybody else see that as? Who?
Was that not the person that was granted the severance in the original place?
Has there been any previous severance of land? Okay.
Severance.
If the answer is yes, please indicate previous severances on the required sketch.
Two.
So who,
Severance.
so the person who received a severance in the past.
Probably couldn't, maybe not that land, but the previous one.
I'm not sure about that.
That's why I'm questioning it, because it could be open for interpretation. 10 people look at that for the first time and they might get 9 different answers. I don't know.
Well, no, it says, please indicate the previous severances on the required sketch. So if you've had a previous severance, who was that severance granted to?
Yeah.
That would be my
Yeah,
interpretation.
that's be mine.
Yeah.
Yeah, mine too.
So like one of the,
It's the person that gets it.
so like the one today where the farmer across the road questioned how you get 2 severances off of one farm.
Yes.
That would have been filled in here, that it was severed to so-and-so 20 years ago. Okay.
Yes, that's something that should have been filled
Yeah,
in.
because it says the date parcel created,
Did you,
1923 or something.
on that one we did today?
There is a house that at some time within that 100 acres that's been severed off, yeah.
Yeah, it showed it on the sketch that it was severed already. And that's why the farmer across the road asked
I didn't drive. Where is it?
Up this way.
further east.
But, you see, I'm wondering if the house we severed today, the people that owned the farm didn't live in the original house, probably not known as today, but whoever built the new house lived in the original house. And that was back before 78 or whatever, when you could build two houses on the same property. And then how many times it's changed hands, but that's probably how they had two houses there. And then somebody at some point severed the other one off.
Different landowner wouldn't know that.
That's why it's good to have this in there. Yeah.
Change the grantee's name to something a little bit more English.
Who was the severance granted to?
Is the significance of 16, because I don't think it comes up all that often. What is the significance? Is it what you were pointing out earlier in the meeting, Aisling, that it has to do with have up to 2 severances on a property, but if number 16 is answered and it shows that there's already been 2 done, a third one can't be done? Is that the purpose of 16?
Might defer this to Nancy.
I don't have it in front of me, so I'm not reviewing it, so I'll have to take a look at somebody's sheet or something.
The date's important, and also, as Duke pointed out, if it came into effect, or if it was done prior to the date of the new OP.
You can do them in some municipalities, but once they're built 10 years, you can come along in the 11th year and sever it. It's a new house for a son or a daughter.
So I would add that, the date the parcel created, okay, that's good.
Because I'm not sure of the year, but it's important that in 95, I know, like my mom and dad's home farm was 150 acres. And in 95, when we got married, I wanted to put a mobile home in there. Well, they wouldn't allow a mobile home, but since it was 150 acres, I could have severed it into 2 75s and built 2 houses on each 75.
That's right.
But no mobile home.
No, but I knew there was a clause. I says, well, there's a clause out there that can be allowed. So the mobile home's going there, you guys figure out where the clause is. Because it could go under the granny flat thing.
Yeah.
And now with, through Mr. Chair, with the new accessory dwellings that are permitted, some of the municipalities are allowing them in agricultural areas too. Now, generally, the stipulation is going to be that if you have an accessory dwelling unit, it has to be within the farm cluster and you shouldn't be severing it in the future. So, but I mean, time will pass and at some point in the future, somebody I'm sure will try to maybe sever off an accessory dwelling. So we'll see. So, yeah.
Any further questions on it? I have one. All this to know, and I think we're just gonna see more people trying to come and aren't really actual farmers. That's concerning with these financial groups and everything else trying to buy land. They're both like in West Adams, they're trying to buy some in Dunwich now. But we're gonna see more, don't you think, Duke?
Yeah, because the size of some of these farms, the price of farmland, the only people that can buy them are investment companies. Farmers can't afford them. They can't get the money to buy that much.
Except for this, he was in here today.
This guy,
He's getting money to buy something.
he sold some of his land to Agri-Invest.
Yes.
20,000 an acre. Paying it back for 4% of what he paid for it. He was paying $800 land.
And that.
Tell me how that's gonna work out, but
We're still streaming, right?
They're paying big.
Give his real estate license.
That was, 20,000, is that the going right now?
Can I just can I also
Ed.
Can I just interject? So, with respect to this application form 2, we talked about, somebody demonstrating they're a farmer. So we talked about a registration number. We also talked about the tax stuff. Is there anything we can ask an applicant to demonstrate they are in fact a legal
Qualified farmer, yes, they should have a number.
An OFA number or something.
Okay, so we should add that to the application form then for sort
Shouldn't they, John? Shouldn't they have a number?
I think,
Hey, but
you have it.
you're gonna get into, I think there's gonna be more and more people are gonna be sharecropping or partnerships or,
That's,
so that's gonna be, because these investors, and we work with some of them now, when they buy this land and they're not gonna do anything with it for 10 years, they want the farm tax situation. So, over the years, we work a lot of land, like with Prespa, Shawside, on and on. Like, I don't know how many we've worked over the years, and I don't really don't blame them, because they're using every loophole they can to,
Yes, they are.
so, and there's gonna be more of that. I know we work with Southside, Lido, and Ferrari's into that in a big way. We don't work with him, but they, so it's good. It's there.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I actually added a section in the appendix for surplus farm dwelling information related to farm business status. So I asked for eligibility for the farm property tax lapsing program. And then I asked about a valid farm business registration number.
Yep. In there.
So,
Good thing, yes.
so to some extent, it comes back to something we talked about at the last meeting where, how do we preserve a rural house in the face of large corporate farmers who would just as soon tear down the house? If we don't allow them to declare it surplus, then we lose a house in rural areas. I think that's a conundrum that you've raised and others have raised. It just, how do we balance that? I don't know. How do we keep rural people living in our townships? Big corporations tearing it down and having one big flat 100-acre, 200-acre field.
If we don't allow severances in some of these, that's what's gonna happen. They're gonna knock it down because they just don't wanna deal with tenants.
You're right. And a good example, I'll throw it out, Van Osh Farms at Mount Carmel. The last 6 farms they bought in the last 5 years, there's no buildings at all, houses gone, everything gone. But what you end up there is you get no serviceable roads. Farmer better own from the main road back to the farms behind to get through, because I can take you to roads that up there that you can't even get a tractor down the road now.
So we've got to be a little bit careful. I know they're looking at an OP review, but we've got to have something that will allow this committee a little bit of wiggle room if we can, to allow us to make decisions like that, saying, look, it's kind of, the policy of the county is to increase or to maintain rural dwellings or something like that. And I don't know how we do that within the auspices of the provincial policy. But if we're gonna get more, as you gentlemen are saying, more and more corporate people buying farmland, not wanting the houses, that's not good for our county. Okay, but it goes against provincial policy, so tear them out, and that's not good for the policy. So I don't know, but if we continue to follow the policies to the letter of the law, we're gonna lose a lot more rural dwellings. So how do we get around that legally? And I don't have an answer.
I don't know.
Except if we can squeeze something into the OP review and see that would give us some flexibility. And what that would be, how it would be worded, how it would be legal, I have no idea.
I don't know either, to be completely honest.
Oh, it's,
Because, I mean, the other edge of that is somebody could use that as the point to try to get a severance regardless of. So these decisions are left to the committee, basically. So if you want, then these applications can come forward, even if they don't have like the tax registration number, and you guys can consider them as they come up. And that would be my only, and then you can debate whether you think it's appropriate or not.
Fact is that there's no one policy out there that can deal with every possible situation anyway, right? So
that's right. That's right.
we just have to go with what we can.
Wise words of an old provincial drainage superintendent, he said, you pass it until somebody appeals it.
Right.
Exactly.
If they appeal it, well, then you deal with it then.
If it gets appealed, then you have the standard for what's allowed and what's not allowed.
Yep.
All of a sudden, the province says, this is where we draw the line, so you guys now know,
Mhm.
we don't approve this.
Yeah.
Hence, you saw with Dunwich, they took 2 pieces of the land that were in residential and moved them back to agriculture that were residential for 10 years or longer, moved it back so they could try and take another piece, and already that one piece that they tried to take, is gonna protest it, so they said, okay, we won't ask for it to be in residential, leave it as agriculture. So you're slowing down, but then the province backs that. because they say every house, you shouldn't be building on farmland. And. Yes,
On the application number 18, where it says you have to fill out the surplus farm dwelling information, it also states that on page 1. Would it be one place or the other, or is there two spots? Because I think one is where it should be bolded like you have.
I saw that too, it was duplicated, but I thought
Well, I just,
that's a good idea to make sure that they can't miss it.
they say the same.
insurance form, right, Jack?
I mean, it is a bit redundant, we don't necessarily need it twice, but if we're trying, like.
Yeah, I suppose.
But it's also good to remind people that.
Could you bold that port, that? Yeah.
Tried to draw attention to the requirements.
Yeah.
For additional.
I
Yep,
have another question. Can this be is this fillable? Like, is it a PDF fillable form?
It will be, our current one is, right now, this one is not, just because I was.
drafting it.
Yeah, we were,
I just wondered, because I
but it
just.
will be, yeah.
We're, through you, Mr. Chair, we're actually working on converting our application to an fully online fillable, and you can pay online and those sorts of things as well. So we're working on that as well. So I'm not sure when it'll actually get done, but probably in the new year. Yeah,
That's what I'm doing with all my Swans forms, all PDF.
I think it'll be.
One more thing on this surplus farmhouse thing. Like, somebody was talking the other day, they've got 2 houses on their farm. They've had them there for years. And now the parents have died and they're wondering if they can sever the one house. Well, that's not part of a farm consolidation. So does that mean they can't sever that one house?
That would be what that means if it's not as a result of consolidation, right?
Yeah,
But the neighbor can buy that property and he can sever both houses.
Yes, because it's a result of consolidation. and it's surplus to his-
So, I see something wrong with that. Somebody that's lived there all their life and paid tax all their life, they can't sever it, but somebody from
But two.
in Canada for 5 days can buy it and sever both houses.
Yes,
well, I mean, the way that the application's worded is that it has to be a consolidation. But I mean, if someone was demonstrating, for instance, they're a farmer, this is surplus to their needs. What else do they have to demonstrate on that application form? Yeah, if they were demonstrating that,
And they can fill in all of it.
then they could fill it out, and what question would we have? When did you purchase this? We're not asking that question. We're just asking if it's surplus to your needs as a farmer. So if that's the case, then no, they can't fill that out because they would be able to, because it is surplus to their needs.
It's good. The farm consolidation part doesn't happen.
Yeah, I mean, the farm consolidation is overall, right? They have a primary address somewhere else. They own multiple farmlands, and therefore, because they have a primary residence somewhere else, they don't need these other houses. So that is surplus to their operation essentially.
Like you see, but this is a 250, 300 acre parcel and there's 2 houses on it.
Yeah.
So they wanna,
but then there's one right now in Middlesex with this new rule that John was explaining, that the boundary change, like this 200 acres got lumped together when the farmer died. And the mother got it. The kids were only 20 something. Well, now they've gone back and it's been able to go back and become 2 100 acre parcels. There's a house on each one. And, but it's the same way. We've got some coming up that have got the second house on it built 10, 15 years ago. And they want that, and now the mother and father want that farm sold, and their house, the farmer that's buying it's gonna sever it. But they also want the son's house severed off it built, but he doesn't work on the farm. So where do you go with all that stuff too?
Well, again, that they have to demonstrate that the owner is the farmer, and it's surplus to their needs. So
They
can
sever it too.
they can demonstrate, and there's no policy in your local official plan that says different. Because there is 1 or 2 local municipalities that do have policies that say you can only have 1 surplus farm dwelling at a time. But if you don't have that policy,
I
then,
think it's just BAM that says that.
It might just be BAM.
Yeah, they're the, I'm looking at the research.
No.
Just BAM because you
Yeah.
have one for,
You mentioned Bale.
but everyone else is okay with it.
It's because we're so far east.
Another question, the checklist that you have, could that go at the very, very front of the application? It's only that, okay, you look at it and say, oh, this is what I have to do. I like being told what I have to do before I.
Honestly, didn't know where to put it in our application, so I just threw it in there and was like, ah, they'll sort it out.
It's a good question, like, because people don't like, we know and Nancy, everybody knows, they don't like to fill out some of these forms. Try and,
But you see it at the end, it's like, oh, I should have done, you know, or this is what.
Up front.
yeah. Any further questions?
Motion to adjourn.
Moved by Dennis, we adjourn. No, I think this is stuff that we've got to get in and get
Yep.